So first of all, thank you for coming today and joining us for this webinar. My name is Mark Phillip, and I'm an application engineer at Studica Incorporated. And a little bit about Studica real quick. We're basically a hardware and software reseller, and we mostly deal with schools and students. So we've been doing this for a little bit over 30 years, and we have quite a bit of experience working with educational institutions and kind of navigating that landscape. And today we're going to be looking at Toon Boom Harmony and Toon Boom Storyboard Pro and kind of how they fit into the higher education world, and kind of why we think they're important and some of the offerings that Studica has for those specific platforms. So if you need to contact me for any reason, my email address is markp@studica.com. You can also see our website, www.studica.com. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump into it here. Now, first of all, some people might not know who Toon Boom is. To put it bluntly, they are a software developer who primarily create software for the entertainment industry. So things like animation, VFX, storyboarding. Their tools are quite heavily used in the professional industry, and they're becoming increasingly more common in education as well because they are so commonly used within the actual industry. So their programs are industry standard, and they're quite powerful and have quite a lot to offer. So again, we're going to take a pretty big picture look at some of their offerings and hopefully give you an idea of what you can do with these programs. Now, I always like to give some motivation on why we like to look at this software inside the realm of, say, an animation program at school. And kind of the big reason is that there's increasingly more and more job opportunities for people who are studying this field and who know this skill set. And a lot of this is being driven by digital content, especially on social media, as well as streaming content. And there's now than ever before, I would say, there seems to be a lot more opportunities for people to get into animation and VFX work and things like that. Because we're seeing it in a lot of different realms now. And these are just some of the job titles that somebody might have if they know this skill set, if they know how to use Toon Boom products, and if they potentially study something like art and animation in school. So a lot of these jobs are actually now coming around inside of industries outside of just entertainment. So it used to be that a lot of the times you were kind of just looking for a job with, somebody like Disney, for instance, trying to make cartoons and movies and things like that. But now that things like research and research and development, engineering, and all these different disciplines are so intertwined with digital software and digital mediums, there's actually a big requirement now for a lot of these institutions to have people who can actually visualize this data, who can animate things in a way that's easy for people to grasp. And so we're actually seeing a lot of this inside of really diverse industries now, where people are using animation tools to basically create visualizations, create informative animations, create like virtual classrooms or e-learning environments, and just a lot of really interesting, innovative uses of this kind of skill set. And so there's a lot more opportunities nowadays for people who have this skill set. So on the career side of things, I went and looked into basically kind of what the statistics are right now based on the U.S. Department of Labor about people who are going into animation. And this specific information is for multimedia artists and animators. And the kind of big thing I like to look at is the projected percent change in employment from 2016 to 2026, which is defined as the job outlook right here. And we're seeing it's actually positive 10%, which is faster than average compared to other careers. So to kind of go along with this, the National Center for Education Statistics had found that visual and performing arts are actually the 10th most conferred bachelor's degree nationwide. So that's still a lot of people going into this field, but compared to a lot of other fields, it's actually not too high on the list. And there's kind of a big opportunity here, I think, for students who are studying this field, because we're seeing a 10% growth over the next 10 years, well, the next 7 years at this point. But we're not seeing quite as many people studying this field. So there's a potential here for the supply of skilled individuals and animators to not quite meet the demands of employment. And that gives a lot of potential for students who might be going into this field in the coming years. Gives them a lot of potential to maybe get a better salary, to get good benefits from their employers. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is this is a pretty safe bet to go into at the moment. There's a lot of opportunities here, and there's a lot of demand from employers for people who have this skill set. So that's kind of the motivation why we like to look at animation within higher education, why we think in this kind of modern digital era, it's more important than ever that people have this skill set, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So let's look at what some of these offerings are from Toon Boom specifically. We're going to start with Toon Boom Harmony, and basically this is a 2D, 3D animation software, and it comes in 3 different versions. There's Essentials, Advanced, and Premium, and we'll take a big picture look at these 3 different versions, what they have to offer. So the common features you're going to get between all three versions are the ability to do inking, painting, rigging, and animating. Those are kind of your 4 big features for any animation program. If you don't have those, you kind of don't have an animation program. So even with the most simple version of Harmony, you still get access to all of that. You also get access to compositing and special effects tools. You have access to bitmap and vector tools. And vector tools are increasingly important as time goes on and more people are kind of transitioning to vector graphics. You also have the ability to export directly to game engines, so this makes Toon Boom Harmony actually a good tool for doing game development if people are interested in maybe doing game animation or game sprite development, things like that. You can actually export directly to Unity 3D, and I believe there's also an Unreal Engine pipeline. And then lastly, you can export to all your common file formats. So if you're doing still images, you can export to your Photoshop format, your PNG, TGA, JPEG, whatever file formats you want. And then with video, you can export to like your HD codecs, for instance. Now, where they start to diverge is in some specific features. So with Harmony Essentials, this is kind of your basic level of the software. It has all those features we just discussed, and that's kind of all it has. So what I took some screenshots of are the drawing and animation menus. These are kind of where most of your tools reside within the program, and you can see that we have some options here, not too expansive, but we can still do all of our basic animation and drawing inside of Harmony Essentials. This might be a good version of the software for people who are maybe brand new to animation software in general, or maybe people who don't quite have a need for anything more than just doing basic animation. If that's all you're going to really be doing, then Essentials might be a good pick. Now, Harmony Advanced takes everything Essentials has and then adds some extra features to it, specifically morphing, onion skinning, and there's some extra timeline functionality. So again, I took some screenshots of the drawing and animation menus. You see that they've lengthened quite a bit. So we've added some stuff in the drawing menu for like creating color art from line art, doing automats. In animation, we do linear motion, no Z dragging, some extra features. Here on the left, we have basically an example of what onion skinning is. And onion skinning basically allows you to see the current frame of animation that you're on within the context of the previous and subsequent frames. So the subsequent frames here are the ones in the red on the left, and the previous frames are the ones on the left, and the subsequent ones are the ones on the right in green. So this is kind of an interesting, contextual feature for really fine-tuning your animation, where you don't have to keep swapping between keyframes to kind of see how your animation is changing. You can just turn on onion skinning and specify how many frames back and forward you want to see, and basically get a context of what your animation looks like. So it's kind of a nice tool to help you fine-tune your animation even more. So again, Harmony Advanced has everything Essentials has, and then adds some extra features, which I just discussed here. And then lastly, you have Harmony Premium, which is basically your professional level version of the program. So this includes everything that Advanced and Essentials has, and then adds some extra features like for rigging. There's basically a lot more tools involved for being able to create really nice rigs within the program. There's curve and envelope deformers to help with creating organic character animation. And they also include the ability to import 3D models in the premium version. So if you wanted to have this kind of interesting hybrid workflow, where maybe you're using Blender, 3ds Max, Maya, Cinema 4D, whatever 3D modeling program you're using, you can bring your OBJ file into Harmony Premium and basically incorporate it into your 2D scene, so you can get this kind of interesting style, or maybe you're going for a very specific aesthetic, you have that option. Additionally, what I took a screenshot here is the node-based compositing tree within Harmony. Now this is only in Harmony Premium, and people who are maybe familiar with other like video editing, animation programs, you might have seen things like this before. This is kind of increasingly popular with a lot of modern software programs, and more developers are doing this. It's basically a really convenient way to manage your layers and your rigging and your compositing effects and everything, and connect things together in a graphical way. This is not included in Advanced or Essentials. This is only in Premium version, and it is a more advanced feature, but it is something a lot of people really like. So that's definitely something where if you're looking for a more professional level of the software, this has all the tools that you're going to need. Most likely any studios who are actually using Harmony are probably using the Premium version in their actual pipeline. So that's kind of the big picture look at Harmony as an animation program, and now we'll take a big look at Storyboard Pro. And Storyboard Pro is like it sounds, it's a storyboarding software. So basically it's going to help you with pre-production, help you plan out your storyboard in a more effective way. And this GIF I have here is basically showing the general layout and kind of how you interact with Storyboard Pro. So Harmony actually looks a lot like this as well, and this is one thing I kind of like about the programs from Toon Boom, is all of their programs have a very consistent user interface. So if you know how to get around one of the programs, it's pretty easy to jump into the other one and figure out how to get around with it as well. But this might look familiar to people who are, again, used to maybe using animation programs and things like that. You have a timeline down here where you can go frame by frame and take a look at all of your scenes here. You can set like a frames per second. You can play it back in real time. You can draw in here, change your layers over here. Yeah, so this is basically to give you just a look at how you would interact with the program. Now, the actual features of Storyboard Pro are that you can actually incorporate your screenplays into the software. So particularly if you use Final Draft, there's a really cool integration with the Final Draft program where you can import your screenplay into the Storyboard Pro, and Storyboard Pro will actually set up your project based on things like your scene transitions, your general narrative, your character dialogue, and like your scene headings and things like that. So it will actually create your shots and transitions for you based on your screenplay, and then it will also bring all the text from your screenplay into Storyboard Pro so that you don't have to keep switching between programs. You can just see everything in one program. Additionally, you can do real-time playback like we saw in the GIF. You can basically go and watch your whole storyboard play out. You can export straight into Harmony, so if you wanted to maybe do some extra animation to really spice up your storyboard for whatever reason, you can do that. You can also export straight out as a H.264, which is a HD movie file, so if you wanted to bring that into some other program to do work on it, you can do that as well. One of the coolest features to me is the ability to create camera movement, so you can actually do like pans and like tilts and zoom in and zoom out with your camera in Storyboard Pro, so you can really see, you know, if you can really visualize how your camera blocking is going to go instead of having to write out like an annotation on pencil and paper. So that to me is a really interesting feature. There's also collaboration tools built into the software, and the way this works is basically you have your project, and when you set up the collaboration tool, it splits that project into pieces. And you can basically hand those pieces off to other team members, and they work on that piece without really affecting everybody else's work. And then when you're ready to bring it all together, you hand that back to like your team lead, for instance, and they bring all the pieces back together with everybody's updates on them. So what's nice with collaboration tools is often in the school environment, group projects are generally a thing. And one nice thing about having collaboration tools is that you don't have to worry so much about how are we going to collaborate with this specific piece of software, because the software kind of handles that for you. So you can focus much more on your communication and being creative versus getting frustrated with making an effective workflow with your program. And then lastly, there's pipeline integration with common video editing programs. So Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere, and Avid. So if you wanted to do some maybe extra editing features that aren't found in Storyboard Pro, you can do that if you have access to these other editing programs. So maybe you want to work with a very specific transition between a scene. You could export your video out and then try that out in Final Cut Pro, for instance. Or maybe you want to look at a color grade in pre-production just to kind of get an idea for what your post might look like. You could try and do that as well. So that's kind of the big overview of both Harmony and Storyboard Pro. And now we'll kind of take a look at some of the learning options that Toon Boom offers to kind of get people up to speed with the software. Because one of the biggest issues with adopting any new program generally is the learning curve. Like, a lot of people don't like learning new programs because they're used to what they know, and they're worried that it's going to take them too long to figure out how to use a new program. So Toon Boom offers quite a few avenues to try and help you get up to speed as fast as possible. So there's both paid and free options. So in the paid world, there is paid professional development where you can either do a half day, a full day, or 1 week of training with a Toon Boom representative directly. This representative is basically somebody who knows the software in and out, and they will work with you to address any questions you have and show you all the ins and outs of the program. And basically you're going to be working with a professional on the software who they know what they're doing, and they should be able to answer any questions you have and really get you up to speed. Now, on the free side of things, there's the Learning Portal, which I'm going to show you here. If I can navigate my too many programs I have open. So the Learning Portal is a free resource on this website, learn.toonboom.com, and you can go here whenever you want. You could even go there right now if you wanted to. And basically this site has just thousands of hours of tutorial content about Storyboard Pro, Harmony, Essentials, Advanced, and Premium, as well as certification and all sorts of stuff. So it's a really good resource. And to kind of just give you an overview here, one way you can navigate that is you can either just search up here for something you're curious about, or you can go into the journey section up here. And a journey is kind of like a textbook, or at least that's the analogy I always use, where a textbook covers like one specific topic very in depth. And so with the journey, you have things like doing rigging, doing cutout animation, compositing, and within each of these, you have a number of courses that kind of narrow it down. I can also filter, so I can look specifically for Storyboard or Harmony. I can also look for like intermediate, advanced, or beginner level. I'm going to click on beginner here and look at the Harmony Kickstart journey. And basically this is to get you up to speed, and it tells you as much. It says this Kickstart will take you through Harmony in no time, learn the main steps of creating an animation project from start to finish. In here there's 3 courses, one for Essentials, Advanced, and Premium. So if I click on the Premium Kickstart, I get these specific modules. Now a module has basically lessons about this specific topic. So if we look at how to draw and animate with Harmony Premium, I can click on this and I see that there's roughly 2 hours and 5 minutes of content here and all these different lessons. Additionally, there's a download material option here. So if I wanted to follow along with the person presenting this topic, I can download the project file directly and open it within Harmony. So I don't have to make my own assets. So if I click on using the drawing tools, for instance, we basically get an overview of what we'll discuss here, and we see this YouTube video. This particular one doesn't have it, but a lot of these lessons, I should say, also have written step-by-step instructions. So if you can't access YouTube for some reason, because I know YouTube is blocked at a lot of schools, usually there's also written instructions here for people. But if I play this, just to kind of give an overview, I'm going to go through here. Basically, it's an instructor sharing their screen and talking to us the whole time and showing us how to use the different tools within Harmony. And they also have these for Storyboard, but the instructor themselves are generally professionals in the field, so oftentimes they're either people who work for Toon Boom directly, who know the software really well, or they're actual like animators who work professionally in the private world. So like this particular author, you can see their information, Jesse Jones, the animator, artist, and tutor. Looks like they have their own, maybe their own studio, or they do consulting work or something like that. But they're generally people who use this in a professional capacity, so they're teaching you, actual workflows that you would probably be using in a professional capacity. Yeah, these videos are very detailed and they're very well done. And there's also, if you sign in, I'm not signed into my account, but usually there's a quiz at the end with some very simple questions to kind of make sure so you can test yourself, make sure you took what you need to take away from the lesson, basically. Whoops, wrong button. The other thing here, if I go into journeys, so the nice thing about this site, in my opinion, is you can pretty much learn anything you want about the software. This is actually how I've learned pretty much how to use Harmony and Storyboard, is by just referring to stuff on this page, kind of on an as-needed basis too. And that's what's nice about it, is if I'm curious about how I do rigging, maybe I want to experiment with rigging tools in Harmony, I can just come here and search for rigging, and I can find all sorts of results about doing rigging in Harmony. So I can click, for instance, rigging artists, and that's going to take me to this entire course of just how do you get around the rigging tools in Harmony. And this is going to take you through everything about creating a rig. So this is, to me, a great resource because it's entirely free. There's no barrier to entry here. You don't even have to have an account to access this content. And it's all very well done. It's, high production value. The people presenting the material know what they're talking about. It's just a great way to really get yourself up to speed with the software, and it doesn't cost you anything. So to me, this is probably one of the best ways that Harmony encourages people to, grab their software and run with it. So I highly recommend taking a look at that if you're interested. learn.toonboom.com is the site, and you can access that anytime you want. So I mentioned early on that Toon Boom software is industry standard, and this is just some of the studios that are using it in the private world, like Universal Studios, Lucasfilms, NBC, DreamWorks, and there are a lot more than that. This is just a few of the big ones, but there are tons of different studios that are actually using Harmony in their production pipeline. So really, if students are getting familiar with this tool set, then that's another tool in their box to basically make them stand out on a resume and hopefully help them find work at a studio somewhere, if that's what they're interested in doing, of course. These are just some of the productions that Toon Boom's been used on, and ultimately, like I said, it's just about preparing students for their careers. And one way of doing that is by making sure they know the tools of the trade and have access to those tools, and not being constrained to just one set of tools. That's the thing with a lot of with a lot of modern software. There's a lot of different tools that all accomplish slightly different things, and a lot of the times, if you're going into a job nowadays, you're kind of expected to know how to use a ton of these different tools. It's not just they're not just going to care if you know Adobe. They're going to want to make sure you know how to use Adobe, you know how to use Toon Boom, you know how to use all these other programs, right? Because they're probably using all those programs in their pipeline somewhere, and they need people to know how to use that stuff. So really, it's just preparing students for that, preparing them for that reality. And a big way of preparing them for that is by exposing them to all these different programs and making sure that they're at least somewhat prolific with the program. Not the right word, I don't think, but yeah, it's just making sure that they have that foundation so that it can help them for their careers and accomplish their goals. So with that, I'll basically say if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat to ask those questions. I'll do my best to answer them. The chat bubble icon is the second item on the left of your Join Me panel at the top of your screen. You should be able to click on that. It looks like a dialogue bubble from a comic book, and you should be able to ask us any questions. In the meantime, while I wait for any potential questions, I'll just reiterate that you can see what we have to offer for Toon Boom for schools at Studica.com, and you can just do a search on our website for Toon Boom, and you should be able to find all of our Toon Boom offerings. I'm actually in the process of updating all of our Toon Boom offerings because the new version just recently came out. So, and then you can also call us at 888-561-7521. That number is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you need to talk to anybody directly for some reason, feel free to call us. Our reps are really knowledgeable about the program, and our sales reps in particular know quite a bit about, school budgets and things like that, and being able to work under those constraints. And they'd be more than happy to talk to you about your needs and pricing options and things like that. You can also email us if you prefer, sales@studica.com, to speak directly to a sales rep if you're interested. So that's all my shout outs for Studica. I haven't gotten any questions. I'll also point out that we will be following up with an email to everybody who attended with some extra information, as well as a recording of this webinar. So if you feel like sharing this recording with anybody, feel free to do so. But yeah, so I'll keep it open here a little longer, see if I get any questions. Okay. Yeah, so again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I want to thank everybody for joining, and hopefully you learned something today. And hope you all have a good day and a good rest of the week. So thank you. Have a good one.